But I went to the commissary the other day.
Oh, okay.
And I was wearing this shirt, and this one lady was like, I moved out of the way for her. I'm like, oh, excuse me. So I moved off to the right so she could get by. She sees my shirt. She goes, nice shirt. I was like, thanks. Time to pull up the schmotes. How many notes do you have?
What I wish I would have done was that day when we discussed the topic for today. I wish I would have just written my notes at that moment.
Yeah.
I'm already. You ready?
Yeah, let's ride.
Welcome to a new episode of Wisdom Wednesdays. Me and Pete and his awesome shirt there that he's been showcasing.
Pookie Bear.
Sam Sulik. Showcasing throughout. Not throughout, but I guess during his whereabouts, going to shopping for food or whatever. But today we'll jump right into the. I wish I had more like we call it animo in Spanish, but like more like more emotion to give, more emotion to show at the moment. But
okay.
I'm like just riding the coast. I'm just riding the coast. When you're like, hey man, we could start at like 1930 if you want. I'm like. Nah, dude. Like I don't know if I'll have. Yeah. I won't have enough battery for 1930. But anyways, today's topic is becoming skilled when dealing with grief, and I have some thoughts behind it, but I'm curious to your angle and your perspective on developing or becoming skilled. I'm curious to like what you mean and where you got that from as well.
Well, as with most things, we gotta set conditions as per my lifestyle page. So I just started thinking about. What are some things that we can do, to help with that, to become skilled with grief? But you have to set those conditions in order to set up that process to actually deal with it. Mm. And also, this doesn't just have to be about death. It can also be about, maybe you failed at large at something. Excuse me. Or maybe like a relationship ended, or you lost a friend somehow. Like they just went down a deep dark path, or someone broke up with you, whatever it is.
So it could be not. I mean, I guess so. Grief is one thing, but it could. So you also mean just when something doesn't happen in your favor.
Yeah.
And dealing with that emotion, maybe that negative emotion, being sad or anger, or whatever that thing is trying to deal with. Okay.
100%, man.
Okay.
So the first thing I'm gonna start off with, and it's the spiritual aspect, because I think that's one of the bigger ones, especially with death. And here's why Christians are going to have an easier time with death than most people. Because, number one, at least from our class we got from Chaplain Spurlock, the reasons behind human suffering is we understand the why behind death. Like, we were the ones who stepped away from God and sinned. Mm-hmm. And as terrible as this is, but that one story that he read us from that book, I think it's "Oh Lord, where art thou?" or something along those lines. Kind of outlining the reasons behind suffering and like where was God when this happened, because that's the main thing that non-believers think about is like, well, I don't believe in God because He allowed this to happen, or there's no way your God could allow this to happen. So with that, I think there was a story in there of unfortunately like a small child getting like run over by like a truck, like they were backing up and like. That happened, which is absolutely just super unfortunate. Yep. And just things like that happen, but we are in a sin-ridden world, and ours it may not be from sin. That child may not have done any sin, right? But there's just death, and there's poverty, and there's just bad things in the world because we let it get like that. Like world hunger. We could solve world hunger. Yeah. Like, we could solve world hunger with the richest people in the world, 100%. But do you think they're going to do that? Absolutely not. So most of the stuff we bring upon ourselves. So if you're someone out there who doesn't believe in God, don't just blame God. There would be no free will if God just decided to just fix everything for us. Because number one, we'd mess it up anyways. 100%. 100%.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm one of those people too. Like I'm a huge. I sin all the time.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because I guess the experience example that I have for becoming skilled, whenever I dealt with something, especially when I was younger, I guess a specific example was like when my grandparents passed away. Like my parent, I was lucky, and I realized this as I got older, but the relationship my parents allowed me to have with my grandparents, like I was very close up until they passed away. When I got, I was in college when they basically passed away like 1 year at a time, back to back, except for one of my grandpas. But when I thought about this, for me, it's a little different because I was thinking about like what does grief mean to me. I was more like what does grief mean to me, and what do I do? What have I done? What do I do when I'm presented with said example? Is my default is just going to work. Like I'll never forget
this. Yep.
I'll never forget. So when my grandpa passed, when my grandpa, my maternal grandpa, passed away in 2011, I believe. I think it was June 2011. That day, my boss so happened to call me into work, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to get some extra hours? Like you don't have to get dressed like in the uniform for work. Like you can just come and sit. You can just come and sit in just regular street clothes. You don't have to worry about like being in your like uniform or whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I'll do it." And then like sometime that day was when I found out that my grandpa passed away. So I just worked, and I worked for like 8 hours. I could have done like 4 hours. I think I was there for like 8 hours, and I let the work job know, hey, like this is what's going on. This just happened, and it's interesting enough. Like my boss at the time, he knew my cousin from college, so it was all connected. So he was like, hey, dude, sorry for your loss, so on and so forth. Gave me some time off, but that particular day, that was in hindsight, like that was my default. My default was go to work, like. Okay. And I wouldn't say I was suppressing. Like, I would suppress the emotion in that moment. But another thing I learned as I got older was like that emotion. It's gonna come out whenever it wants to, or whenever it wants to.
It's gonna overboil, like Travis Spurlock talks about. You keep putting stuff down, it's gonna come out. And I have that in my notes all the way at the bottom. One thing you can definitely do, guys, is stick to your routine, because when you fall out of your routine, I mean, I feel best in a routine. Every once in a while, like for vacation, like 2 years ago, me and all my friends, never went to. We went to, I think it was Ocean City, Maryland, and we all got like this really nice beach house. It was super fun, and that was kind of. I mean, they planned that, I think, 3 to 4 weeks out, and I'm usually not someone who's not a planner. Yeah. Elliot took care of all that, and he's like Hannibal from the A-Team, like taking like just being the master planner. Yeah. And so we went and did that, and that felt really great just to get away for like 7 to 9 days, however long that leave block was, But then we all know about 3 to 4 days into leave, maybe even a little bit longer than that, depending on what's been going on, we're ready to come back here. Yeah. Like when I'm home, I notice I start to flaw majorly. When I'm home, I actually cuss a lot more, and I get a little frustrated easier, and I also lack in discipline because I'm not in my original environment. But at the same time, you can't fall victim to just the fact that you're not in your environment because you're not always going to be there. Right. But back to grief. This isn't the Jocko podcast. You have to be disciplined in every aspect. Right, stick to your routine. Don't change things up as long as it's not affecting you majorly. Yeah. Right? Like if you're showing up to work, and although you might enjoy work a little bit, but there's still some frustrating things, and you feel like you're gonna blow up. Like, please let someone know. Please talk to your boss. Please talk to somebody. Just like, hey, like this is going on. Can I get some time off? All that stuff, because you don't do that, then you're gonna overboil, like you just talked about. Yeah. Right. But I really appreciate you bringing that up about the work part. I'm glad we can kind of tie this in. Me and you both have some of the same ideas when we say this stuff.
And I think so just as a little intermediary thought here was the fact that like me and you have a lot of the same conclusions, a lot of the same thoughts, and yet like age-wise, like number-wise, like we're 10 years apart. But yet through the experience that we've gained over the so far, we've still ended up at a lot of the same conjoining, thoughts and ideas behind like these, topics like this where, I guess I'm treating it more like a more serious one because those are the things I think of. But nonetheless, it's just something that I like to kind of reiterate because like this has happened over time as well. Just conversing, not like all the time that we spent before we even started recording these conversations. Yep. Like, dude, hours and hours.
We had basically a podcast on ship that just wasn't going viral. Yeah.
Exactly.
To tap one last thing onto the spiritual part, we know where people are going, depending on how depending on how they live their life.
Right.
Now, we can't always know where they're going, but like, if I talked with like Fletcher or you, like, I know that you guys would be going to heaven. I would I have a pretty strong feeling you guys are going to heaven. I would hope so.
Right,
it's not my decision.
Right.
But I would like to hope. I would like to think so. So we have that peace. So as Christians, I think that we have a little bit step up in the game. And that sounds so wrong, but a little more advantage when it comes to dealing, especially with death, because we understand it a little bit better, and it talks about it all the time within Scripture.
Right. I think what you mean too is like. I think I've brought up spiritual journey kind of in general, and when you have a spiritual journey, no matter how young you may be in it, no matter how experienced you think you are in it, having that direction, having that sense of where you can revert back to give you that guidance,
that baseline.
It's like exactly that baseline, and how I've told you this even during Bible study and stuff on the ship was like it's taken me even this long, like like it really did take me all of deployment and to go to every single Bible study and to go do A, B, and C and all these things and have these conversations to still be like, okay, I think I'm kind of getting a grasp of it now. I think like it's not even a certain thing, but it's like it took all this trial and. I don't want to use the word tribulation because it wasn't really a tribulation, but the trial itself of the deployment was what still led me to be like, okay, I think I got just a sliver now. I got just a tiny grasp.
To keep building, keep growing closer to God.
Right.
Yeah. So then the next point is we've talked about this at least so far every episode because it's so important. Is your circle, and you guys can use, like in the grief process, you can use your circle for multiple things. Yeah. It could be to confess decisions that, like, let's just say the event happened, right? And now you're grieving, and then you went and did something that you regret, from trying to cope differently.
Yeah.
You can confess to that person what you've been dealing with and what you were doing to cope with it. Yeah. You also just simply have someone to talk to and someone to listen, and now you have someone to spend time with and maybe take a break from those emotions. I'm telling you right now, dude. Like, I'm just trying to think of an example. Let's say, unfortunately, if like someone in my family would like pass away, and one of my boys was like, "Hey, man, like we're gonna go up into the woods here for a few days, and like we're gonna do some squirrel hunting. We're gonna just get around the fire and have a good time." Like I would absolutely go because that just would alleviate some of that. It'd make me feel close to my friends, and knowing my friends, we'd probably end up talking about it that night, and it wouldn't ruin the evening. Because if you have good friends, like that shouldn't ruin an evening.
Yeah.
Like that should, if anything, like you guys just build off that and just can move on from it. And not only that, but your friends are going to keep you from doing things that you shouldn't be doing during the grieving process.
Or they should be.
Or
they should be.
Or that they should be, yes. And with that...
I guess I tussle with the word like should, like would, should, could, like they should be, but then at the same time, because maybe if they're not, it doesn't mean that they're doing like with malicious intent. I guess I just want to state that too. It's like it's like well, your friends should be hopefully there to guide you, but at the same time, like even if they're not guiding you in like 100% the right direction, we'll say, it's not always with malicious intent at the end of the day. It's just, I don't know. I just wanted to say that because again, I feel like I use a lot of open-ended like answers sometimes. Like
you most definitely do.
I leave it open-ended because like, well, I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But if I can,
you want us to think for ourselves too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's another thing. It's like that. But in this circumstance, like using the word should, it's like well, it should. But just because they don't guide you in 100% the right direction doesn't mean they're not your friend. Doesn't mean they don't want the best for you.
Yeah, 100%. And with that. Right, because it's sometimes hard to do that because you don't really know when to step in and when to do that because you don't want to maybe mess with that person at the time and what they might be dealing with, but also you have to come into the fact of you want to give them their space, and you can't like just hound over them. You can't just look over their shoulder the whole time.
That's an interesting balance. Yeah. You're right.
So you got to figure that out. Like me personally, if I were to like, I'm trying to think of an example, man. My buddy, when unfortunately his father passed away, that all my buddies were pretty close with, like I didn't not give him space because I still like that 96 when I found out that happened. I went home in that 96. I spent time with him, and all the boys helped like move stuff out of his house and things like that. But so I spent time with him with helping him move, and I also spent time with him just in general. But I wasn't with him like the whole time.
Yeah.
And not only that, but then when Christmas came around and we went back home again, I was like all the families were inviting him over, like everybody, like all the boys' families were invited. Like, you can stay the night here, you can have Christmas here, and he was like, and the one thing that like really surprised me was he said, no, I'm just gonna spend Christmas here at home, and he had an empty house, empty house, and just did that himself, and I was upset because I'm like, man, he's just over there by himself, but I know that that's what he wants, so. Yeah. That was that balance of, hey, I was helping him out. I was spending some time with him. Yeah. The boys were getting together. Then Christmas came around, and he was like, hey, man, I just want to just be in my house by myself. I'm like, all right, man.
Yeah, man. Oh, man, that's it's very rough because just to reiterate and to harp on the fact of, like, you're his friend, you want to be there for him. But then, if you can empathize, going back to something that we talked about before, having empathy, and even to this day, I haven't had that experience where my friend loses like a parent. I haven't had that experience, that from my recollection at the moment. But if you try to empathize with your friend who just lost her dad, it's like, that's hard. Yeah, that's super hard, and to this day, even for me, just the thought about it and listen to the story, I don't mean to, I feel like I want to kind of apologize for feeling like we're bringing this down like a morose road, but it's a life road, right? And that's the whole point of Wisdom Wins.
We're moving with life.
That's the whole point of bringing this thing full circle, is because that's when you start learning and you start figuring out what actually matters. Again, just now we're gonna start reiterating points. Basically, is like what actually matters to you. What are you gonna be spending time on? Who's gonna be that circle that's gonna be in there for the long run? Like me, like my circle back home is smaller than 100% smaller than the circle I have here.
Oh yeah,
and it's great. Like the relationship we built here, obviously, like it's exponential, but there's no comparison in number. I'm saying numbers. There's no comparison in the numbers I have at home versus the numbers I have here. The numbers I have here way more than I have back home. But anyways, it's just like, using, so I guess in your shoes, dealing with your friend, it's like, okay, what can I, going back to becoming skilled, like what can I take away from this? How can I approach this? If I were in his shoes, how would I want to be approached? What would I do? Because I feel like I'd probably be very similar to that too. Like
putting yourself in that person's situation, like we talked about last time.
Yeah. And I feel like, and as far as your boy, like for me personally, if that were to happen to me, it would be very easy for me to just, hey, I'm good. Like I will let you know. I will let you know when we're good.
Yeah.
Man, it's a heavy thing, man. I don't know. I guess I take some of that stuff to heart too, even though I don't know this person, but in working in an ER and seeing trauma medicine and dealing with family members who have just lost a loved one, brothers, sisters, mothers, dads, whoever, literally whoever, wives of 65 years, 75 years married, and now this gentleman's wife,
partner,
has just passed away. They're in the ER. I guess that's one thing that I've gained, and if anything, I feel like I've 10x my want to be better empathy because of those experiences. But at the same time, it's like, okay, it also helps me get myself out of my head, where it's like, okay, dude, like you're here, like let's try to get yourself into gear, for whatever you're trying to do. Do you have anything else as far as?
Yeah. So the one thing that I think people have been doing a better job at in society that we see at least now all the time, and depending on who it is, right? Because me and my friend group, this is, and like families around us, we still do this. Are you remembering or thinking of some good things that impacted you or the people around you from those certain experiences, like within the grief process? So like that person that passed away, like what are you talking about that? Are you bringing it up? Are you remembering some of the good things? Are you resonating with what happened in the past and remembering that and continuing to share it?
Yeah.
Versus just, like we said, stuffing it down, not talking about it. And even if some bad things happen, right? Even if things didn't, even if like you might have failed at something, or even if you might have like something didn't work out between you and a partner that you used to be with, you can, as hard as it is to say sometimes, is good things did come from it, and then the things happen for a reason. And me and you are huge believers in that. Everything happens for a reason. And me and my friends talk about that all the time, man. So, like, legit ask yourselves and revert back and dig really deep and find what good came from this. How can I still share some of the goodness within this whole thing? You know, find the good, be positive. And then, because most people that I've seen, so next point, so people coming together, right, when they lose somebody, should not stop coming together.
I like that.
I feel like some families, like when someone like passes away, they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss." Show up, and then afterwards, nothing. You know. But I'm telling you, like people in my community, people that I'm close with, people that we've lost, like we are still. My buddy and they just had this thing up at Penn State called like the bar crawl.
Okay.
And like you go and like everyone has a shirt on like for the bar crawl, and you sign. Whatever bar you go to, you have like a permanent marker, and everyone signs your shirt at each bar you go to, and like I think you check off what bars you've went to on the shirt. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
And my family, like not my family, but like my buddy, the families I'm close with, went up there to do that with like a bunch of kids like my age, and they went up there and had a good time. And like we've lost people, you know, and they went up there and had that good time though. They didn't just let a certain circumstances bring them together and then they stopped. People have made the statement before, "Oh, America needs another 9/11 to come together." I'm like, okay, yeah, we might come together, but what's going to happen a decade later when another 9/11 doesn't happen, and now we're just back to square one? So,
I want to add on to that point, my perspective. So full transparency, and in case I have some family watching, you know, I'm not gonna give like the whole detail, but it made me think of a certain circumstance when I think it was my grandma that passed away, and that happened, and it was at the beginning it was a good thing, but then I found myself to be very, very angry, very mad. I was very upset because this is my opinion, but this is being transparent at the same time. Is I was seeing certain family members that I hadn't seen in, let's say, years or months or whatever.
Oh, I think you told me about this.
I'm like, and now you feel like this, and even now I feel the anger when I think about the situation, but I don't live like this. I try not to live like this. But like that happened a few times in that I'm pretty sure it was when my grandma passed away, and I was like, where were you like 6 months ago? Like what does it matter now? And I guess going to like the no regret thing and thinking deeply, it's like, why are you waiting for someone? Like, because I guess that's one thing that motivates, or not motivates me, but it fires me up. It's like, why are you waiting for someone to die to then try to do something? How about you don't wait? You know, if I can tell you anything, it's like, how about you don't wait till then? Like it's and I feel like it sounds really bad, but it's rather annoying. It's like, don't wait. Why? For what? And now what? Like, this person's gone. I can't bring them back. You had 10 years to visit them. You know, and I'm just throwing out numbers. Like, I'm literally making up numbers, but that's how I feel. That's how it felt even in that moment of like, you live 2 miles down the road. What in my eyes, like, what does it matter now?
Yeah.
It's not too late. You can do better, and you can, because I feel like after that for me is like the not the will thing, but like the, I'm trying to think of like there's a metaphor. It's tip of my tongue, but basically the knitting of my family, the numbers got smaller, but it got stronger. And so that's one thing that I really appreciate, especially now going back home whenever I get to go home at post-deployment, blah blah blah. Is like it's a lot smaller, but like it's a lot tighter. You know, it's a lot just more defined, and I like that because I know that it's harder to be broken now. Like that little like that kneading, that togetherness is way harder to be broken now. And it's like, okay, cool. This is it. You know, as far as like these are the people, and this is all that fucking matters. You know, because that's how I feel. You know, like, anyways, I'll let go.
So something to tie into that point that doesn't really have to do with like the grief thing, but one thing I heard on like the Man Talks podcast with Connor Beaton was he had someone on and they asked. He said, ask someone this question, is there anything that? Oh man, I want to go back through my notes really quick and find it.
Just try to summarize it as best you can.
All right. It goes like this. Like if you were to die in the next 2 to 3 months, what would you want to do together? You know, so because although that person may not die in 2 to 3 months, like you two are spending the time together that you know you should be.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that I don't think about a whole lot. But every once in a while, it will pop up, and we talk about it again. What's more important, time or money? You know.
Okay, but I thought you were gonna bring up like
what duty is.
No, like.
We're talking in code. Oh. Yeah.
That's the part that.
Oh yeah.
That I'm talking. That's the part. That's what I'm saying. I think I knew where you're going with this. Like, the trading duty's fine. Trading duty. Okay, your trading duty.
Trading duty. Yeah.
Leave it at that.
So trading duty. Because my buddy's going home not home. My buddy's going back down south to do some engineering to go see him and spend some other time with some family.
Yep.
So I asked myself, you know, do I just sit back here and just stick to my normal routine, or I go see my friend who's leaving soon? He may not be dying, but he's leaving to go. And talking about it, right? Talking about the experience that might have happened or the situation that might have happened, depending on how that person feels towards it. Because, you know, if I passed away, I would love for it if my fellow Marines or my friends talked with my parents about me constantly. You know, because I think that would bring them a lot of peace and a lot of happiness and, you know, hope and joy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, not everyone is going to be like that. Like, they can cherish their own, like, good moments from whatever might have happened, right? But that doesn't mean that they want to share it with everybody and consistently talk about it. But here's what I found is most of the time, and I think this is where society's headed in a good direction, is we absolutely talk about it quite a bit. Like when I go home,
talk about what?
Like if someone passes away, like we talk about them all the time. Like me and my buddies, we talk about one of our friends who passed away all the time. We talk about, like, my one buddy brings up his dad, and we talk about him, and everything's fine. My one friend's mom, her dad passed away, and I was pretty close with him. And like we're laughing, like we're having good, joyous times.
I will say that those are pleasant times. I've had a few of those, especially again going back now, and you know sometimes you reminisce and you'll say something that person might have said, or you know, let's say the son or whoever says something and like they sound like him, or they say something that he would have said all the time, like you know, like because when we say that, we know what we're talking about, right? So like in that sense, you say you have a one-liner or something that, or you do a thing that Mikey would have done that too, you know, whatever, you know, that's just a simple example of like, and it puts you in a good space. I don't know, it puts like even last night when we did our little going away barbecue and so we're hanging out, and you were just going down the list, right? You were telling us stories, dude.
Everyone was absolutely rolling,
dying. So like, what it made me think of right as we're going through this right now was like, as you were saying something, you were cool. Technical difficulties. Yeah. All right. So we'll try to continue this, and I'm probably gonna leave this little piece in there. So what I was saying, and we'll reiterate now because we went for like 5 minutes past the recording time, and now we're gonna try to tie this all together. So I was saying how yesterday you have this list of stories, and it's funny quotes and stories, and hey, you remember this and you remember that, and
from the deployment. And
what I was leading into was how hearing some of those stories felt like it was us in the past. Like I felt very detached. Like me, cause I was there. It was me, you, and then Graham, and and everybody else kind of followed suit around. And we're just there. And you're telling stories, and like there were moments in those stories where it's like, dude, that was so long ago. Like that was so long ago. It was so crazy. And then you said how
it didn't even seem real.
It didn't even seem real. And then like 2 months ago we were like in Greece doing whatever. It's like dude, like it's just interesting how I felt in that moment, because you were talking about how it also like when we talk good about people, like it's a good thing. It's like it is. I'm like, it is a good thing. I guess to reiterate that, but yesterday was one of those moments where like we were just howling, we were just laughing,
dude, we were
for like an hour, dude. Like these stories, and I'm just laughing, and Sir's laughing, and everybody's just like, and you know, we'll say D is like just there like with a smile, and just there like hearing these stories, some of it for the first time, some of it not for the first time. And he's like, well, I'd rather not know.
Yeah.
But we're just there. Like,
he's lying. He's
just cackling.
Know. He's having a good time.
Yeah, dude, it's funny. Anyways,
and it's funny how you bring that part up. I know this is getting a little bit away from like death, but like, although deployment was not, in my opinion, I wouldn't have changed a thing about it because, like we said, dude, everything happens for a reason. Although sometimes of it might have like
sucked pretty bad,
but even then, right? I was driving the other day to Catalyst for the serve day with the kids, and I'm driving there, and it was a beautiful morning out, and I was on my way to get Dunkin'. That was the morning that I made that video.
Oh, okay, I saw it. Yeah.
Busted. And on my way there, I thought to myself, I've had this thought every once in a while. Whenever I'm like complaining or just whenever, really, I was on my way to Dunkin'. I thought to myself, I'm like, I'm not on a boat right now. I'm not on a boat. I'm driving my car. Yeah. It's absolutely beautiful out this morning. I'm about to get Dunkin' Donuts. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, you know, a couple months ago, I would have never fathomed this because I was longing for it but never got to it. But just remembering certain things that happened in the past that can help you just, like, have good-natured, like, just thoughts about certain things.
I think that does tie in really well to just the premise of becoming skilled, being skilled. And again, grief is one thing, but becoming skilled is like, that is becoming skilled. If we wouldn't have dealt with these things, gone through these things, no matter how small we thought they were and how big we realized they were after, but just, you know, that circumstance that was not optimal, it wasn't the circumstance that we wanted or liked, but we pushed, we really did push through. But that's developed, that allows me to develop that skill. And again, reiterating, it wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't have gone through that hard thing, you know, where it was mostly mentally taxing. It wasn't really physically taxing. It was mostly mentally taxing. Yeah. That's how you put a note in your phone.
Yeah, I did. I typed it in really quick. This is something I heard from another one of Connor Beaton's podcasts. It's called Man Talks. Highly suggest you guys check it out. It's super, super good. Especially, obviously, for men, but it's also good for the ladies out there to gain some perspective with the men, and they also talk about like things about women on there too. So, is putting yourself in the past emotion and asking yourself, and this may not even be with grief, but I think it can tie in some sort of way. Maybe you guys can apply it in your own sense. I'm not sure. How did you feel in the past when you regretted or when you didn't do something in this certain point? Or what did you regret? Like, put yourself in the past regret. Like, man, I regret being this open at this time with this person. I regret that. I regret not, keeping some things inside and being a little bit more emotionally mature with whatever it is.
Can you turn off your radio, please?
Sorry, yeah. And then, so thinking back to the past, like, how did I feel in that situation? And putting yourself just back into that emotion and really try to resonate with it. And although sometimes we're still going to fail, because I've done this, I feel like you've done this, and everyone's done it.
I'm going to give a story as far as regret. Continue.
Because it may not have happened. It may have happened a while ago, and so you're like, so you might have forgotten about it a little bit. Yeah. But every once in a while, you're gonna have that thought. And you're like, this is how I felt back then. Yeah. I don't want to feel that way again because of the regret you have. So
yeah, it's a real thing.
I just thought I'd throw that in there.
So the story that now that we're kind of transitioning to regret and trying to make a better decision because of our past decisions. That actually, and I've never told, and I have thought about how I'd like to bring this story to the podcast at some point in some capacity, because regret's it's a big deal to me, and that's why I try to push to you all. It's like, for one, you guys have way more time than you think, but it's like, dude, you literally can choose whatever you want.
Yeah.
You can do and choose whatever you want. And for me, what it was quitting baseball.
Whatever I want.
Yeah, literally whatever you want. And
you heard it, folks.
yeah. So for me, it was quitting baseball my junior year of high school.
You told me about this. Yeah.
So like played freshman year, played sophomore year, did really well sophomore year. Junior year, we get a new coach. At the time, I don't know. I mean, I just came into my complete rebellion. I was just a rebel. Mentally, I was a rebel. I was just a rebel, right? And so junior year, just rebellious and not wanting to adapt to change. And I'm this good, and I'm this person. And it was like me. In my perspective, maybe it wasn't people who knew me at the time, but in my perspective, it was like I am good. I can do this thing. I can't do that thing. I don't know why this is happening to me. I don't know why I have to do that thing. Like why do I have to do that thing, right? And in the end, it was my lack of ability to adapt to change. That's what it was. Mm-hmm. Nonetheless, it took me years even then, but it was like I quit baseball my junior year because I was getting ready to be in varsity my junior year, get moved down back to JV. And what I should have done, because obviously the hindsight's 2020, is what I should have done is just gotten better.
Lock in.
I should have just gotten better. I doubled down. For whatever it's worth, I'll use a word. For whatever it's worth, dominate. Just do well. Because now I'll be we'll say a senior person in the JV squad, and I could have just done way better and just gotten better. But no, my hard head was like, no, I know everything. Yeah, basically that was me my junior year of high school. So quit my junior year. Get through my senior year, graduate, and it's like, oh, you're gonna play baseball this year? I'm like, nope, I'm not gonna play baseball. Nope, I don't want anything to do with it. Blah blah. I'm done. Blah blah. Get to college, and I feel like it still took a little while to get out of that regret. Because I feel like it because I quit, and because I hate using the word quit, but that's what actually happened. Was that it actually made me very suppressive and made me very sad. For like a little while.
Yeah.
And so that happened, okay. But then I'll say once I start, so now let's fast forward a couple years and get into my music career, and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna do this thing.
Yeah.
I'm cutting out a bunch of years, obviously, but the point is, so I get into music, it's like, oh, I'm gonna do this thing, I'm gonna do it really well, and I tried my best, I did it for 6 years. Come to the end of those 6 years, I'm like, what am I gonna do next? Because I was lost. But then I was slowly starting to realize I can do anything. Like, what are you gonna tell me? What are you gonna tell me? But this time I didn't mean it in an arrogant way. I was like, no, like there's so much to do. I started reading books. I started just trying to like develop myself, my personal like just life and like decision, like just trying to do better. I feel like it was like the smallest schematic of trying to be a little more open-minded. Mm-hmm. But then it did lead me to joining the Navy, becoming a corpsman, now going greenside, now deploying, now figuring out my next thing. But like all that ties in, I do enjoy telling some of these stories. And I've told you a lot more stories and like little like microcosms of why I say, dude, just as long as you don't have that regret of saying yes or no, then just go try it at least. At least go try it. Yeah. At least. And so anyway, that's just a condensed story of like how baseball has been one of the bigger catapults over the past, the past 15 years, it's catapulted me to now, and like just the way I try to, I don't always do it, I'm not always successful, but it's like, oh, why not go into woodworking for a little bit? I'm just gonna learn a new skill. Why? Because I can. It's like, dude, it's not like we don't. Because I've told you, like, we don't have to make every single thing trivial, and I try not to do that. Yeah. Even now at work, as busy as work is, it's like I'm gonna get my rest at night, and I'm gonna enjoy my weekends. Yeah. It's like it's not that trivial. And I promise you, I will get the work done.
And it's worldly. When we're in heaven, hopefully we make it there, then it's what's it matter, because it's a worldly thing. Money is a worldly thing.
Be content. What was part of the sermon this weekend?
Being content, dude. Yeah. Idols. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Great message. And tying that in, you submerged yourself in the past emotion, right? And then with that, but even though you might have been disappointed, you didn't let it make you bitter. And we've talked about this before, is like, there's a difference, folks, between disappointment and bitterness. Don't let disappointment stop you from finding happiness. Just because one thing didn't work out with this time and didn't work out the other time doesn't mean it's not going to work out this time. So don't let the past experiences keep you from trying to find what makes you happy in terms of that. But there's a difference because bitterness, that is putting a complete stop, like line in the sand, not doing that ever again, no way, anything like that. There's certain experiences where you probably should do that. Certain things
or it can lead you to be bitter, but over time, the healing process, whatever that looks like to you and whoever, it's like, don't let that emotion drag you down, though.
Yeah.
I think we can agree on, like, you may get angry, you may be bitter at this thing. Cody Johnson has a great line on Dear Rodeo. Now I'm jaded because Dear Rodeo. That was he thought he was gonna do that forever, and then he turns out to be a country music singer. But then there's a line in Dear Rodeo during the chorus. He's like, oh, now I'm jaded, and to be jaded is to like have that bitterness toward that thing that caused you so much angst. To your personal life and your decision to then go move forward with your life.
Yeah, that's so true, dude.
It's deep, man. It's not. I mean, it's not that deep, but it's heavy. It's a heavy thing, and I think it's real.
Last thing here, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I think we're getting pretty close.
Yep.
Do you think, and this is a personal question for you, do you think society has gotten better at dealing with death, or even just bad situations that cause grief in general? Do you think we've gotten better or worse?
I think in person, we've gotten better.
Okay.
When people watch it on social media, social media, we're talking just media, right? News outlets, social media, so on and so forth. Any type of like digital media source. We've also become very, very desensitized.
Yeah, 100%.
And again, I'll probably tie this in till we don't do this anymore, but working in an ER, working with Chicago police, seeing these things, watching these people, watching how people, even after a bad incident, still seeing a person just be malicious. That's for whatever reason, whatever's led them down that road, but just mad people, angry people, malicious people. They don't wish any good on the world. So it's interesting because it's dichotomy. It's a terrible answer.
Yeah.
But it's both. It's just to reiterate, it's in person, and when we talk like today, we had a little lull there of like emotion because it's like, well, that's real. When your buddy loses his dad and now he's gonna spend Christmas alone.
Yeah.
It's like that's real. But then weeks pass by, and I'm not moving on from that example, but now let's say I'm watching this video or he's watching or one of our friends is watching, and this person gets run over or whatever, and it's like you just swipe to the next one.
Swipe to the next video.
And you watch the next one. And now your algorithms track that, so now it's going to start giving you a couple of those every once in a while.
Yep.
So yeah, I find myself going back to the open-ended answers that I tend to give. Here's another one. But I can't, again, I told you this over and over, and I told you this personally and in group as well. So like, I can't show you what it's like to be there when a husband watches his wife die. I can't be there when the daughter watches her dad die, and we were just trying to keep him alive for the past hour and a half. I can't show you what that is. All I can show you, especially as a Marine, and the guys, is like, okay, let's do this to try to keep them alive as long as possible and get them out and give them a chance. Let's give him a chance. All I can do is show you those things.
Yeah, it's all through experience. Yeah. Well, I think
that's a good time.
That's a good wrap.
That's a good wrap. Hopefully, again, we went through ebbs and flows of today's episode. I think, and I hope you enjoy the episode. I hope you've been enjoying this. I almost moved it to maybe tomorrow, but then I had the sound thing tomorrow. And I'm like, what about Wednesday? I'm like, we're trying to post about Wednesday. So I'm like, no, we need to do it today, right? And I'm glad we did, because I was thinking about like, okay, this isn't just affecting me, because I do enjoy the conversation, but then it's like we've started on a good pace, and let's try.
We owe it to them.
I do feel like that.
Yeah,
I do feel like that. I feel like that, especially because like I'll get little comments once like during the workday or like, hey Andy or hey Cos or whatever, you know, and I was like, you like the, and I won't always reply like, oh, you listen, like I won't, because I'm probably going off to do the next thing right after a meeting or whatever. But nonetheless, that's like I do take mental note of like, oh, cool, like okay, like that gives me a little pep in my step to be like, hey, tonight I'm tired, but we're gonna do this thing. Yeah, you know, however long it takes.
Same thing as last time. Like the folks just telling me, like, this is what I took from your podcast. Asking me questions like, oh, maybe like, you know, what did you think about this? Like, could you expand a little bit more on that? People actually hitting me up and asking me about it and talking to me about it just motivates me even more to want to do this, because people are listening and people actually care, and like that just makes me really happy that people are interested the way that we are interested.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I just still want to thank you guys so much, because dude, like when I get super excited, I start cheesing. Like
when Pete gets nervous or very excited, he's cheesing.
I start cheesing. Yeah. So yeah, but I really do appreciate it, guys. It just makes me the happiest in the world when you guys get to watch this, and hopefully it helps you out. And people were talking about it around like the platoon barbecue last night, you know. So I really just appreciate you guys watching. Please share this with your friends. Please share it with your family. If you guys could please post this on your stories, that would be awesome too. If you don't, no big deal.
Put a comment about what you like the most, or like, hey,
post just a clip.
Post your questions in the comment, or subscribe. You know, the whole thing. All that also helps just give us feedback to not necessarily manipulate like to you, but at least we can see where your head's at. That's the way I kind of take it and approach that.
Yeah, and not only that, but it just gets the word out there, because someone else could benefit from seeing this too. Guys, we have no doubt that we're not going to be like Logan Paul or Jocko podcast.
This is very, I will say, as much as we enjoy talking and trying to bring these thoughts and these experiences, it's also a very selfish thing. It allows us to make an excuse to give us an hour to talk and converse, but we're recording, and we're you know, making a little, we're taking a little bit of time, and hopefully, you know, something's gained out of it. And so yeah, like, subscribe, follow Pete on condition_havoc. And Andy _MWL. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. Leave comments, thoughts, bitches and complaints.
Yeah,
as they say.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll have this up on Wednesday. You'll be seeing this on Wednesday, and hopefully we'll be able to just continue just riding the wave that we're on, and keep bringing these thoughts and these topics that have resonated with us, and now we're just bringing them to you. So until next time, we'll see you all very soon.
Like my memes. Like my memes. Stop scrolling past my memes. I put time into them, and thoughts and feelings, and I laugh at them all the time.
Those are once at bedtime.
Once at bedtime. That was good. That was solid. Yeah, it wasn't really a hiccup.